In section 1.5, we are going to go over comparing and evaluating functions and what a function is. For the first example, we are going to evaluate. We are given 2 to the power of n. When I view this in my head, I like to envision 2 and like a little box where the n is. That's where I'm going to be plugging in the number that's in the parentheses. So I will do 2 power up, and then this little block is going to be replaced with our value, 3. That equals 8. When I plug in a 10, I do 2 to the power of 10, enter, and I get the output is 1024. All right, let's try again. On this one, I have a 7 as my base. And then up in the power, I'm going to be plugging in where that x value is. So I would type in 7, power up, plug in a 1, 7, 7, power up, plug in a 4, enter, 2,401. In our next example, we have no powers. You'll notice everything's in the same line, no powers. When I envision it, I have a -10 plus an 11, parenthesis. I have a blank where the x is, -1. This is where I'm going to plug in the number they're asking for. That's what the variable x, when I have a variable, they're wanting me to plug it into its place. So I'm going to type in -10 plus 11, parenthesis. They want a 3 first, so I'm going to put a 3, -1, close, enter, is 12. Now I'm going to plug the -10 in, so -10 plus 11, parenthesis. In my spot, I put a -10. Make sure it's the little negative sign on the calculator, little negative sign. And then there's, after it, a -1. -1, close, enter. -131. Next one we're evaluating. It wants us to look at what happens when we have a number being squared with +8 at the end. When I plug in, I'm going to make sure to use parentheses. So I'm going to actually write out how I would type this. I would type in a 12 squared plus 8, and I would type in a -3 squared plus 8 to find my answers. So parenthesis 12 squared plus 8 is 152. Parenthesis -3 squared plus 8 is 17. So be careful of parentheses. If it marks it wrong on your assignment, it's most likely the parentheses on there. All right, P of x. This one is asking for you to do a 2, plug the number in and square it, plus 6, plug the number in, -3. Plug the number in and square it, plus 6, plug the number in, -3. And the same thing for these boxes. We are going to use parentheses. So I would type in 2 times 0 squared plus 6 times 0 minus 3. These will go away and be zeros, which will just leave a negative 3. Now I'm going to plug a 2 in. So I would have 2 times 2 squared plus 6 times 2 minus 3. 2 times 2 squared plus 6 times 2 minus 3 is 17. Then I plug a negative 2 in. Two times negative 2 squared plus 6 times negative 2 minus 3 is negative 7. Then I plug a 4 in. 2 times 4 squared plus 6 times 4 minus 3. And I plug in a negative 3. Two times negative 3 squared plus 6 times negative 3 minus 3 at the end is negative 3. So if you are asked to compare, let's say we look and compare these two. We compared g of n to f of x. Which one is increasing faster? You can look at the numbers you plugged in. Based off of these values, you know that 7 to the power of x, f of x is increasing faster. If you were to compare g of n to h of x and you look at their values, this one has an 8, then goes to a 1,000. The 12 goes to a negative 100. If we're looking at our values, the power is going to increase more than the exponential is going to increase more than a linear function. So think about how you would tell which one is growing faster. Next example, determine if each of the following is a function, no repeats in x. So 1 outputs 5, 2 is 4, 3 outputs 3, 4 outputs 2, 5 output 1. These each have their own outputs. This is a function. Negative 3 outputs negative 2 outputs 0. When I plug in a 0, outputs a 3 and a 4. That means if I plug a 0 in, I get 2 numbers when I plug it in on my calculator, and that is not a function. Two has 1 output, 4 has double outputs. This cannot work as a function. I have 1 outputs 4, negative 1, 5, 2 outputs 7, 3, negative 2. All of my x's, they're all different. There's no repeats anywhere. This is a function. Negative 3, 1, 2, negative, there is a repeat, and it says it outputs 6 and then a 9. Not a function. We now have negative 1 outputs 2, 3 outputs 5, 6 outputs 5, which is fine, right? I can plug a 3 and it tells me it equals 5. I can plug in a 6 and it tells me it equals 5. That's fine. I just can't have double numbers on the left for x. 5 outputs 11, 1 outputs negative 2. This is a function. Now the vertical line test. Basically, you're just drawing a bunch of vertical lines to see if it ever touches the graph more than once. So this one, as I draw my vertical lines, it's only touching once, 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 once. This is a function. With the V, as I draw my vertical line test, it touches it one time, one time, one time, one time, once. Once it passes the vertical line test, it's a function. I draw my vertical line, it touches it twice, it automatically does not pass the vertical line test, so it would be not a function. Vertical line test, touches it once, 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 once. I'm looking for any place it overlaps. There's no overlap. This is a function. Looking for over, oh, there's 3. Ooh, there's 3 again. It should only touch it once. This is not...
I didn't get that. Could you...
Sorry, this is not a function. Vertical line test, once, once, once. Woo, that touches a lot of times in that one spot. Everywhere else is fine, but because of this one spot, it makes it not a function. Because that touches a lot of points on that one vertical line. And that is the vertical line test. Our last questions for today are ACT. It asks, if f of x is equal to parenthesis 3x plus 7 squared, then what would f of 1 equal? When it says f of 1, it's saying it wants you to take the 3x plus 7 squared and replace the x with a 1. So I'm going to type in 3 times 1 plus 7 and square it. 3 times 1 plus 7 and square it. 100. E. Super quick, right? Just plugging it in. For the function h of x, 4x squared minus 5x, what is the value when h is negative 3? So I'm taking this x squared minus 5x, and I'm plugging in a negative 3 into those parentheses. I plug it in. 4 parenthesis negative 3 squared minus 5 times negative 3 is 51. I look for 51. There we go. Not too bad. Let me know if you have any questions on today's assignment.